Shane Robinson stood in his spacious kitchen, watching the sunrise paint the Seattle skyline in shades of gold and crimson. At 35, he had everything a man could want: a thriving cybersecurity company, a beautiful home overlooking Puget Sound, and what he believed was the perfect marriage to Carrie. His military background and intelligence had served him well in the tech world, building Robinson Security Systems into a company that protected some of the nation's most sensitive data. The coffee maker gurgled to life as Shane scrolled through encrypted messages on his tablet. 3 years of marriage to Carrie had been blissful. She was brilliant, working as a freelance translator for international corporations, which explained her frequent travel. Her linguistic talents had impressed him from their first meeting at a cybersecurity conference in D.C. "Morning, handsome," came Carrie's voice from behind him. He turned to see her descending the stairs in her silk robe, auburn hair cascading over her shoulders. Even after 3 years, she still took his breath away. "Coffee's almost ready," Shane said, pulling her close for a kiss. "You're up early for someone who got back from Prague at midnight." "Jet lag works in mysterious ways," she laughed, that musical sound he'd fallen in love with. "Plus, I wanted to spend time with my favorite CEO before your big presentation today." Shane smiled. Today, Robinson Security Systems would pitch their latest quantum encryption software to the Department of Defense, a contract worth $50 million and years of development. Only a handful of people knew the details, including Carrie, who had helped translate some of the technical documentation. "I should shower and get ready," Carrie said, heading toward the stairs. "This presentation is going to change everything for us." As she disappeared upstairs, Shane's phone buzzed. His sister Lorna's name appeared on the screen. As a pilot for Northwest Airlines, she rarely called during work hours unless something was urgent. "Hey, Lorna, aren't you supposed to be flying today?" "Shane, I need to ask you something weird." Her voice was tense, almost whispered. "Carrie, is she home right now?" Shane glanced toward the stairs, hearing the shower starting. "Yes, she's in the shower." "What?" The silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably long. When Lorna spoke again, her voice dropped to a whisper. "That's impossible, because I'm looking at her passport right now. She just boarded my flight to Geneva." The coffee mug slipped from Shane's hand, shattering against the marble floor. His military training kicked in immediately, the same cold clarity that had kept him alive during covert operations in Eastern Europe. "Are you certain it's her passport?" "Shane, I've seen Carrie dozens of times. Same photo, same signature, same everything. She's sitting in first class, row 2A, and she looks exactly like your wife." Just then, Shane heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see Carrie standing in the doorway, hair wet from the shower, wearing a concerned expression. "Everything okay? I heard something break." Shane studied her face. The same green eyes, the small scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood accident, the way she unconsciously touched her wedding ring when nervous. Everything was exactly as it should be, yet his sister was 3,000 miles away, watching someone with Carrie's passport board an international flight. "Just dropped my mug," Shane said carefully, still holding the phone. "Lorna, I'll call you back." As he ended the call, Shane's mind raced through possibilities. Identity theft was common, but getting a duplicate passport required connections, resources, and time. This wasn't random. "Was that Lorna?" Carrie asked, kneeling to help clean up the ceramic shards. "Is everything all right?" "Just pilot stuff," Shane replied, watching her movements carefully. Was it his imagination, or did she seem relieved? For the next hour, Shane went through the motions of his morning routine while his mind worked the problem. He kissed Carrie goodbye, watched her leave for what she said was a meeting with a new client, and then immediately went to his home office. Shane's security background had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, every instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. He pulled up his encrypted computer system and began cross-referencing everything he could about Carrie's recent activities. Chapter 2. Cracks in the Foundation. Shane's fingers flew across the keyboard as he accessed databases that few civilians could reach. His military clearance, though officially expired, still opened certain doors through old contacts. What he found in the next 3 hours would have broken a weaker man. The credit card records showed Carrie's card being used simultaneously in Seattle and various European cities over the past 6 months. Not just small purchases that could be explained by online shopping, but hotel stays, restaurant bills, even parking fees, physical locations that required presence. Shane pulled up the security footage from his own home system. He scrolled back through weeks of recordings, studying the woman he'd been living with. There, subtle differences he'd never noticed. The way she held her fork, left-handed instead of right. How she no longer hummed while cooking, something the real Carrie had done constantly. The slight change in her laugh that he'd attributed to happiness. His phone buzzed with a text from Carrie, meeting running long. Don't wait up tonight. Love you. Shane stared at the message. The real Carrie never used periods in her texts. It was one of her quirks that used to drive him crazy. She'd write, love you, not love you. He called his private investigator, Dale Crosby, a former Army Ranger who'd served under him in Afghanistan. Dale, I need a priority job. Full background check and current location tracking. On who? Shane hesitated, the words feeling like glass in his throat. My wife. 2 hours later, Dale arrived at Shane's office with a thick file and a grim expression. You're not going to like this, boss. Dale spread photos across the desk. I ran facial recognition through international databases. The woman in your house? Her real name is Vera McKnight. She's part of a sophisticated identity theft and corporate espionage ring based in Eastern Europe. Shane studied the photographs. Side by side, Vera looked nearly identical to Carrie, but the subtle differences were there once you knew to look for them. Where's my real wife? Dale's expression darkened. That's where it gets complicated. Carrie Robinson disappeared 8 months ago while traveling in Bulgaria for a translation job. Local police listed it as a missing person case, but it was buried under bureaucratic red tape. 8 months. Shane's blood ran cold. I've been living with an imposter for 8 months. It gets worse. Vera McKnight's handler is a man named Arturo Herrera, former Spetsnaz, now running industrial espionage operations. They specialize in long-term infiltrations of tech executives. Shane's hands clenched into fists. His company's quantum encryption project, Vera had access to everything. Every detail of the Defense Department contract, every security protocol, every weakness in their system. There's more, Dale continued. Herrera's operation is funded by a consortium of foreign tech companies wanting to steal American defense innovations. They've done this before. Replace a target's spouse, extract information over months or years, then disappear with everything. Shane's military mind was already working, calculating angles and possibilities. But underneath the tactical thinking, a cold rage was building. They had taken his wife. They had violated his home, his life, his trust. And they thought they could simply disappear when their mission was complete. Dale, I need you to set up surveillance on Vera. Round the clock, but don't let her know. I want to know everyone she meets, every call she makes, every move. What are you planning, Shane? Shane looked out his office window at the Seattle skyline, his reflection showing the hard expression that had once made enemy agents confess their secrets. I'm going to find my real wife, and then I'm going to destroy everyone involved in taking her. Chapter 3. The Hunter's Preparation. That evening, Shane returned home to find Vera cooking dinner, humming softly. The sight of her wearing Carrie's apron, using Carrie's favorite recipes, filled him with a controlled fury that would have terrified his enemies. How was your day? Vera asked, kissing his cheek with lips that weren't his wife's. Productive, Shane replied, studying her micro-expressions. The Defense Department presentation is tomorrow. I'm nervous about it. You'll be brilliant, she said, touching his arm. You always are. Shane nodded, recognizing the subtle attempt to extract more information about the presentation. Over dinner, he fed her carefully crafted misinformation about the encryption protocols, watching as she filed away every detail for her handlers. After Vera went to bed, Shane descended to his basement workshop, a room she'd never shown interest in exploring. Here, surrounded by electronics and surveillance equipment, he began planning the most complex operation of his life. Dale's surveillance reports came in hourly. Vera had made 3 calls to untraceable numbers, sent encrypted messages through a secure app, and visited a safe house in Georgetown twice that week. The pattern was clear. She was preparing for extraction. Shane pulled up intelligence files on Arturo Herrera. The man was a ghost, moving through identities like smoke. But ghosts left traces, and Shane had spent years learning to follow them. His computer chimed with an encrypted message from an old contact in the intelligence community, Clifford Warren, now working private security in Europe. Found something about your missing person case. The Bulgarian police weren't incompetent, they were bought. Your wife stumbled onto something bigger than a simple kidnapping. She discovered Herrera's operation was planning to infiltrate Robinson's security systems months before they made their move. Shane's blood ran cold. Carrie hadn't been a random victim. She'd been trying to warn him. She left something for you. A safety deposit box in Vienna, under the name Robinson Translations, LLC. Box number 247. The key is hidden in her childhood teddy bear. Check the left ear. Shane ran upstairs to his bedroom, where Vera lay sleeping. In the closet, exactly where Carrie had always kept it, was the threadbare teddy bear from her childhood. Shane carefully felt along the left ear and found a small slit in the seam. Inside was a tiny safety deposit box key. As he held the key, Shane's phone buzzed with another message from Clifford. Herrera's planning something big in Geneva. Banking summit next week. Your wife might still be alive. They'd keep her as insurance until the operation is complete. Shane looked down at Vera, sleeping peacefully in his bed, and a smile spread across his face. It wasn't a pleasant smile. He spent the rest of the night preparing. By dawn, Shane had crafted a plan that would have impressed his old commanding officers. It was audacious, dangerous, and relied on turning Herrera's own tactics against him. First, he would use Vera's handlers' trust in her to feed them false information. Second, he would follow the money trail from the Defense Department contract to expose the entire conspiracy. Finally, he would use his own skills and resources to hunt down Arturo Herrera and rescue Carrie. But Shane Robinson had learned patience in the military. He would let his enemies believe they were winning, right up until the moment he destroyed them completely. As Vera woke up and smiled at him with stolen affection, Shane smiled back. She had no idea that the man she'd been manipulating for 8 months was about to become her worst nightmare. Chapter 4. The Web Unravels. 3 days after discovering the truth, Shane stood in his company's conference room, delivering the presentation that would seal his enemy's fate. Defense Department officials sat around the polished table as Shane explained the quantum encryption system that would revolutionize military communications. But the slides they were seeing weren't the real ones. As you can see, Shane said, clicking to display deliberately flawed encryption protocols. Our system uses a 2048-bit quantum key distribution with standard error correction. In the audience, General Ivan Barr nodded approvingly, unaware that he was witnessing theater. The real quantum encryption system used a revolutionary 4096-bit key with Shane's proprietary error correction, information that Vera would dutifully report to her handlers. After the presentation, Shane returned home to find Vera in his study, quickly closing his laptop as he entered. Just checking my emails, she said with practiced innocence. Of course, Shane replied, knowing she'd photographed the fake presentation files he'd deliberately left open. The presentation went well. General Barr thinks we'll get the contract. That evening, Dale's surveillance team reported Vera making an urgent trip to the Georgetown safe house. Through long-range microphones, they captured fragments of her conversation. Encryption is weaker than expected, 2048-bit keys with standard protocols. Easier to crack than we thought. Shane smiled. Herrera's organization would waste months trying to decrypt phantom weaknesses that didn't exist in the real system. Meanwhile, Shane had been busy with his own intelligence gathering. Using contacts in the banking world, he traced the money flowing into Herrera's operation. The trail led through 3 shell companies to a consortium of Chinese and Russian tech firms, all desperate to steal American defense innovations. But the most important discovery came from Vienna. Shane had flown there under a false identity, using skills learned in military intelligence. The safety deposit box contained Carrie's real investigation into Herrera's network, months of carefully gathered evidence, photographs, financial records, and most importantly, a detailed map of Herrera's operations across Europe. Carrie had been more than a translator. She'd been working undercover for Interpol, investigating the very network that had ultimately captured her. Her last notes, dated just days before her disappearance, revealed the stunning scope of Herrera's ambitions. They're not just stealing tech secrets. They're building profiles on hundreds of American defense contractors, mapping vulnerabilities for a coordinated cyber attack. Shane's company is just the beginning. The final page contained an address in the Swiss Alps and a single line. If something happens to me, this is where they take high-value prisoners. Shane memorized every detail of Carrie's intelligence, then destroyed the originals. He flew back to Seattle with a new appreciation for his wife's courage and a burning determination to finish what she'd started. That night, as Vera slept beside him, Shane received an encrypted message from Dale. "They're moving. Vera got new orders today. Timeline has been accelerated." Shane wasn't surprised. His fake presentation had convinced Herrera that the encryption system was vulnerable, making immediate action more attractive than the patient long-term infiltration they'd originally planned. "Shane." Vera's voice came softly from the darkness. "Are you awake?" "Just thinking about work," he replied. "I've been thinking too." She moved closer, her hand finding his chest. "About us. About our future." Shane felt his jaw clench. Even now, she was maintaining the charade, possibly preparing for her final extraction. "What about our future?" "I love you," she whispered, and Shane wondered if there was genuine emotion behind the words, or if she was simply that good an actress. "I want you to know that, whatever happens." "Whatever happens." Shane turned to face her in the darkness. "Why would you say that?" "Just, life is unpredictable. I want to make sure you know how I feel." Shane stared at her silhouette in the moonlight. This woman who wore his wife's face and slept in his wife's bed. Tomorrow, she would likely receive orders to complete her mission. Within days, she would probably vanish, taking with her everything she'd learned about his company, his life, his vulnerabilities. But Shane Robinson had other plans. "I love you too," he lied, his voice steady as steel. "Sweet dreams, Carrie." As Vera drifted back to sleep, Shane began the final phase of his preparation. By tomorrow night, the hunt would begin in earnest. Chapter 5, The Trap Springs. Shane's opportunity came the next evening when Vera announced she had to meet a client for an urgent translation project. "It might take a few hours," she said, gathering her purse with the same casual efficiency she'd displayed for months. "Don't wait up." "Be careful," Shane replied, kissing her goodbye for what he knew would be the last time. Dale's surveillance team followed Vera to an upscale hotel downtown, where she met with a man matching Arturo Herrera's description. Through directional microphones and telephoto lenses, they captured crucial intelligence. Vera was being extracted in 48 hours, immediately after a final data upload from Shane's company servers. But Shane was already 3 steps ahead. While Vera met with her handler, Shane was in his company's server room, implementing a digital trap that would have made his old intelligence colleagues proud. Every file Vera had accessed over the past months had been replaced with modified versions containing tracking code. When Herrera's people tried to use the stolen data, it would phone home to Shane's private servers, revealing their exact locations. More importantly, Shane had prepared a special surprise. The quantum encryption files Vera had photographed contained hidden malware disguised as calculation errors. When Herrera's team tried to reverse engineer the technology, the malware would not only corrupt their systems, but also provide Shane remote access to their entire network. At midnight, Shane received confirmation that Vera had returned home. She slipped into bed quietly, believing him asleep. "How did the meeting go?" Shane asked softly. "Fine," she whispered. "Just a boring contract review." Shane nodded in the darkness, knowing she'd likely just received final instructions for the data theft. Tomorrow would be her last day maintaining the charade. The next morning proceeded normally. Vera prepared breakfast, kissed him goodbye, and left for what she claimed was another client meeting. But Dale's team reported she never left the hotel where she'd met Herrera. At noon, Shane received an encrypted message from an unexpected source, Lorna, his sister, the airline pilot. The woman with Carrie's passport never made it to Geneva. She disappeared from the Munich airport during a layover. Police found her passport in a bathroom trash can. Shane smiled grimly. Herrera was cleaning house, eliminating loose ends before the final phase of the operation. The fake passport had served its purpose as misdirection, making Shane look in the wrong direction while they solidified their infiltration. But they had underestimated him. That afternoon, Shane's phone buzzed with a text from Carrie. "Something's come up with work. Going to be out of town for a few days. Love you." Shane stared at the message, then typed back. "Where are you going?" No response. He tried calling. The phone went straight to voicemail. Vera McKnight had vanished, just as suddenly as she'd appeared in his life 8 months ago. But Shane had been ready. His phone immediately lit up with alerts from the tracking software embedded in the stolen files. The data was being accessed from a location in Geneva, specifically from a luxury hotel that catered to international business travelers. Shane packed quickly, taking only essentials and equipment that wouldn't trigger airport security. His diplomatic passport, a remnant from his military intelligence days, would get him through customs without questions. As his plane lifted off from Seattle, Shane reviewed everything he knew about Arturo Herrera's operation. The man was methodical, careful, and deadly. But he had one weakness: arrogance. After 8 months of successfully infiltrating Shane's life, Herrera believed he understood his opponent. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Dale remained in Seattle, coordinating with Shane's other contacts and maintaining surveillance on known associates of Herrera's network. If anyone tried to finish what Vera had started, they'd walk into a trap. But Shane's real focus was on Switzerland, where Carey's intelligence suggested Herrera held high-value prisoners. If his wife was still alive, that's where she would be. As the plane crossed the Atlantic, Shane felt the familiar cold calm of an operation beginning. He'd spent months being reactive, discovering the scope of the deception piece by piece. Now it was time to take the initiative. Arturo Herrera had made this personal the moment he took Carey. Now Shane would teach him the difference between stealing from a businessman and threatening a soldier. Chapter 6. Into the Lion's Den. Geneva's luxury hotels were a perfect cover for international espionage. So many legitimate businesspeople and diplomats that a few more faces attracted no attention. Shane checked into the Grand Hotel Kempinski under a false identity, 3 blocks from where his tracking software placed the stolen data. His first priority was locating Herrera's operational base. The luxury hotel where the data was being accessed turned out to be the Hotel President Wilson, overlooking Lake Geneva. Shane spent the day conducting surveillance from various vantage points, identifying patterns and security measures. At 6 p.m., his patience was rewarded. Vera McKnight emerged from the hotel's main entrance, no longer playing the role of loving wife. Her hair was different, shorter, darker, and she moved with the confident efficiency of someone operating in their natural element. She was accompanied by 2 men, one Shane didn't recognize, and another who matched Arturo Herrera's intelligence photos. Tall, lean, with the bearing of a former Special Forces operator, Herrera looked exactly like what he was, a dangerous predator. Shane followed at a distance as they drove to a private airfield outside Geneva. Through binoculars, he watched them board a helicopter heading toward the Swiss Alps. The flight path matched the location from Carey's intelligence, the remote facility where Herrera held high-value prisoners. That night, Shane made contact with Clifford Warren, his intelligence contact in Europe. They met at a quiet restaurant in Geneva's Old Town. "You're walking into a fortress," Clifford warned, spreading satellite photos across the table. Herrera's compound is built into the mountainside, minimal access routes, sophisticated security systems. Swiss authorities can't touch it. Technically, it's an international airspace. What about the prisoners? Intelligence suggests he's holding at least 6 people: tech executives, government contractors, anyone with valuable information. The good news is they keep prisoners alive as long as they're useful. The bad news is what happens when they're not. Shane studied the satellite images, his military mind automatically calculating approach routes and defensive positions. The compound was indeed a fortress, but every fortress had weaknesses. "I need equipment," Shane said. "Nothing traceable to any government agency." Clifford smiled grimly. "I know a guy." 3 hours later, Shane had everything he needed: climbing gear, tactical electronics, and specialized weapons that wouldn't show up on any official inventory. He also had something more valuable: detailed intelligence on Herrera's security protocols, gathered by European intelligence agencies over years of observation. The compound's weakness was its strength. Built to be impregnable, it had limited escape routes. If Shane could get inside and create enough chaos, Herrera's own security measures would work against him. But first, Shane had his own trap to spring. Back in his hotel room, Shane activated the malware he'd hidden in the stolen encryption files. As expected, Herrera's team had attempted to reverse engineer the quantum encryption system. The malware immediately began transmitting everything from their computers, not just technical data, but operational plans, prisoner locations, and most importantly, Herrera's complete network of assets across Europe. Shane's phone buzzed with incoming data as months of carefully hidden intelligence was laid bare. Financial records showing payments to corrupt officials, blackmail material used to control assets, and a complete list of every operative in Herrera's network, including their current assignments. But the most important information was a prisoner roster. Carrie Robinson was listed as Asset 23C, Priority 1, active. She was alive. Shane's hands trembled slightly as he read the intelligence summary. Carrie had been interrogated extensively about Shane's company and his military background, but she'd given them nothing useful. Her Interpol training had prepared her for this. The roster also revealed something that made Shane's blood run cold. Carrie was scheduled for termination in 72 hours, as soon as Herrera's team finished exploiting the stolen encryption data. Shane checked his watch. Less than 3 days to infiltrate an Alpine fortress, rescue his wife, and escape with both of them alive. He'd faced worse odds in Afghanistan, but never with stakes this personal. As Shane prepared his equipment and studied the compound's layout, he thought about Vera McKnight, the woman who had shared his bed for 8 months while planning his destruction. Tomorrow, when he reached Herrera's compound, he would see her again. But this time, she would see him as he truly was. Not a mark to be manipulated, but a soldier on a mission. Shane Robinson was coming to get his wife back, and God help anyone who stood in his way. Chapter 7. Assault on the Mountain. At 3 a.m., Shane began his ascent of the Swiss Alps toward Herrera's compound. The approach required 6 hours of technical climbing through treacherous terrain, but it was the only route that avoided the security sensors and guard posts. His military training served him well as he navigated ice-covered rock faces and narrow ledges. The compound, built into a natural plateau 8,000 feet above sea level, appeared to be carved from the mountain itself. 3 satellite dishes on the roof confirmed this was Herrera's primary communications hub. Shane established an observation post in a natural cave formation 500 meters from the compound's perimeter. Through his tactical scope, he counted 12 visible guards, all carrying military-grade weapons and moving with professional discipline. Motion sensors covered the obvious approach routes, and thermal imaging revealed at least 6 more guards stationed inside the main building. But Shane had advantages they couldn't anticipate. The malware in their systems had given him complete access to their security network. With a few keystrokes on his tactical tablet, he could monitor their communications, disable alarm systems, and even access their internal surveillance cameras. At 4 p.m., Shane watched through hacked security cameras as Vera McKnight and Arturo Herrera toured the compound's detention level. The footage confirmed Carrie's location, a high-security cell in the facility's deepest level. She appeared weak but unbroken, her defiant posture recognizable even through low-resolution surveillance video. Shane felt a surge of pride mixed with rage. His wife had endured 8 months of captivity without breaking, protecting him and his company even under extreme duress. But as Shane watched, Herrera pointed at Carrie's cell and made a cutting gesture across his throat. The message was clear: her usefulness was ending. Shane checked his equipment one final time. He had perhaps 6 hours before they moved against Carrie. The compound's shift change at midnight would provide his best opportunity, but it would still require perfect timing and considerable luck. At 11:30 p.m., Shane began his infiltration. Using thermal charges placed during his reconnaissance, he created multiple diversions around the compound's perimeter. As guards responded to apparent security breaches on the north and east sides, Shane approached from the west, using his hacked access to disable motion sensors in a narrow corridor between patrol routes. The compound's ventilation system provided entry, just as Shane had planned. Military facilities were built to keep people out, not to prevent someone with the right knowledge from getting in. Shane dropped into a maintenance corridor and immediately accessed the security system through a hardwired connection. Within minutes, he had complete control of the compound's electronics, cameras, alarms, door locks, even the lighting systems. Moving through darkened corridors with night vision goggles, Shane systematically eliminated guards with silent precision. His military training had taught him to be efficient and merciful when possible, but these men had participated in holding his wife prisoner. His mercy was limited. The compound's detention level was protected by additional security measures, but Shane's access to their systems turned every defense into a tool for his use. Electronic locks opened at his command. Security cameras showed him exactly where guards were positioned. Even the facility's announcement system was under his control. At 12:47 a.m., Shane reached Carrie's cell. She was sitting on a narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling with the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd been pushed to their psychological limits. When the cell door clicked open, she tensed, expecting another interrogation. "Carrie," Shane whispered. She turned, and her eyes widened in disbelief. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she was in his arms, and Shane felt 8 months of carefully controlled rage and grief crash over him. "How did you?" she began. "Long story," Shane said, checking the corridor. "Right now, we need to move." But as they reached the detention level's exit, alarms began blaring throughout the compound. Shane's infiltration had been discovered. "This way," Shane said, leading Carrie toward the escape route he'd planned. But their path was blocked by 6 guards, all armed with automatic weapons. Shane stepped in front of Carrie, his own weapon trained on the guards. Behind them, he could hear more footsteps approaching. Well, came a familiar voice. Shane turned to see Arturo Herrera approaching, flanked by Vera McKnight and additional guards. The famous Shane Robinson, finally showing his true face. Herrera smiled coldly. "You've caused considerable inconvenience, Mr. Robinson. My organization has invested months in your wife's hospitality. I'm afraid the return on that investment requires her permanent silence." Shane calculated quickly. 12 armed opponents, limited ammunition, and Carrie to protect. The odds were impossible by any conventional measure. Fortunately, Shane Robinson had never been conventional. Chapter 8, The Reckoning. "You made one critical mistake, Herrera," Shane said, his weapon steady despite being outnumbered 12-1. "Oh, and what's that?" Shane smiled grimly. "You assumed I came here alone." He pressed a button on his tactical tablet, and the compound's lights went out completely. In the darkness, Shane heard Herrera barking orders, but it was too late. The explosions began 30 seconds later. Shane had spent the afternoon rigging the compound's own security systems against it. Charges he'd placed during his reconnaissance weren't just diversions. They were precision demolitions designed to collapse specific sections of the facility while leaving the detention level intact. In the chaos of falling masonry and twisted metal, Shane grabbed Carrie and moved toward the emergency exit he'd identified hours earlier. Behind them, Herrera's men struggled to navigate the darkened, collapsing facility. But Shane's real trap was just beginning. Emergency lighting flickered on, revealing the compound's main computer room and the dozen men in tactical gear who emerged from concealment. They weren't Shane's allies. They were Swiss federal police, armed with arrest warrants and evidence of Herrera's international crimes. Arturo Herrera called the team leader in accented English. "You are under arrest for kidnapping, industrial espionage, and terrorism." Shane had used the intelligence from Herrera's hacked computers to provide Swiss authorities with everything they needed: prisoner locations, financial records, evidence of crimes committed on Swiss soil. The malware had been gathering evidence for weeks, building an unassailable case against the entire organization. Herrera's face showed first shock, then rage as he realized the scope of Shane's counteroperation. "You self-righteous American fool. Do you have any idea what you've—" His words were cut off as Swiss tactical officers moved to arrest him. But Vera McKnight wasn't finished. She drew a concealed pistol, aiming not at Shane, but at Carrie. "If I can't complete the mission, at least I can clean up loose ends." Shane moved without thinking, his body remembering years of combat training. The shot that should have killed his wife instead caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around, but not stopping his forward momentum. His return shot was precise and final. Vera McKnight crumpled to the floor, the woman who had shared his bed and stolen his trust dying with Shane's real wife's name on her lips. "Carrie." Shane knelt beside Carrie, who was checking his wound with professional efficiency. "It's not deep," she said, her voice stronger than it had been in the cell. "You'll live, you magnificent, reckless fool." As Swiss police secured the remaining members of Herrera's organization, Shane held his wife and watched his enemies being led away in restraints. 8 months of patient planning, investigation, and preparation had led to this moment. But as they were escorted from the collapsing compound, Shane knew the real victory wasn't in capturing Herrera or rescuing Carrie. It was in the simple fact that his wife was alive, safe, and back in his arms where she belonged. Chapter 9, Coming Home. 3 weeks later, Shane and Carrie sat on their deck overlooking Puget Sound, watching the Seattle skyline glitter in the afternoon sun. Shane's shoulder was healing well, and Carrie had regained most of the weight she'd lost during her captivity. The aftermath of the Swiss operation had been complex but satisfying. Herrera's organization had been completely dismantled, with arrests across 12 countries. The stolen defense technology had been recovered and secured. Most importantly, the 6 other prisoners in Herrera's compound had been rescued and reunited with their families. "The FBI wants to debrief you again next week," Carrie said, reading through a stack of official correspondence. "Let them wait," Shane replied, pulling her closer. "I've told them everything relevant." What he hadn't told them was the full extent of his counter-operation. The tracking software embedded in the stolen files had continued gathering intelligence even after Herrera's arrest, revealing the complete structure of the international espionage network. Shane had quietly passed this information to appropriate allies, ensuring that the conspiracy Carrie had uncovered would never threaten anyone again. "Dale called this morning," Carrie continued. "Robinson Security Systems stock is up 30% since the Defense Department contract was announced." Shane nodded absently. The quantum encryption system he'd developed, the real version, not the decoy, was now protecting critical military communications. But financial success seemed trivial compared to having his wife back. "There's something else," Carrie said softly. "Interpol offered me a permanent position, consulting on international technology crimes." Shane looked at her, studying the face he'd thought he might never see again. "What did you tell them?" "That I'd think about it. After everything we've been through, maybe it's time for both of us to step back from the dangerous world." Shane considered this. His military background and Carrie's intelligence work had shaped their lives in ways both positive and destructive. But they'd also given them the skills to survive when survival seemed impossible. "Or maybe," Shane said carefully, "we've learned that the dangerous world doesn't leave people like us alone. Maybe the question isn't whether to engage with it, but how to do it on our own terms." Carrie smiled, the first completely genuine smile Shane had seen from her since the rescue. "Are you suggesting we become some kind of team?" "I'm suggesting that people like Herrera will always exist, and people like us are the only ones equipped to stop them." They sat in comfortable silence, watching boats move across the Sound. Shane thought about Vera McKnight, the woman who had lived in his house and shared his bed while planning his destruction. Her dedication to her mission had been impressive in its own twisted way, but she'd made the fundamental error of underestimating her target. Shane's phone buzzed with a message from an encrypted number. "New situation developing. Corporate espionage with national security implications. Are you and your wife available for consultation?" Shane showed the message to Carrie, who read it twice before looking up at him. "What do you think?" she asked. Shane considered the question. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a successful businessman with a beautiful wife and a comfortable life. Now he was a man who dismantled an international espionage network, rescued his wife from Alpine captivity, and learned that sometimes the most dangerous enemies were the faces of the people you loved most. "I think," Shane said, typing a response to the encrypted message, "that the world needs people willing to fight for what's right. I think we've proven we're very good at it. And I think we make an excellent team." Carrie leaned against his shoulder as he hit send, accepting whatever new challenge awaited them. "Together?" she asked. "Always," Shane replied, meaning it more than any words he'd ever spoken. The Seattle skyline sparkled in the setting sun, and Shane Robinson, soldier, businessman, husband, and protector, prepared for whatever battles lay ahead. He'd learned the hard way that peace was something you fought for, not something you were given. And he was very good at fighting. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.